don't let them. I can tell you now, unashamedly, that ABC truly, truly drove this. Thanks. And if you run into some of the people at Dow, like Jeff Stoltenberg and Jim Fitterling in particular, who took the took the weight of construction into that meeting with the Michigan Economic Recovery Council. Fitterling took us in, and I mean, we rode his coattails. He killed all the politics involved in this, all the labor versus non-labor, and we're going back to work. And there's so much more to this story that's going to come out, but I'm sure a lot of people will be patting themselves on the back for it. But if you're an ABC member, don't let anybody take your credit, because I'm telling you, we did it. ABC did this, and we did it in such a rapid fashion that I don't know, we probably would be 2 to 3 weeks out had we not come together collectively as an association. So without further ado, one of the things I do want to share with you that came out of these MERC meetings and some of the meetings with the governor, and this is weeks ago, there's going to be a new criteria for safety. Do not be surprised as users, as consumers of construction goods and services, that people aren't going to ask you, what are you doing differently now that you did post-COVID-19 or pre-COVID-19? There'll be a lot of people who with a checklist, what kind of safety tips are you using? What kind of safety training are you using? There's going to be a lot of this stuff out there. And the last thing we need to do is be ill prepared for that now that we have the gates open and we can go back to work. One other thing that you need to be cognizant of is the fact that there will be some safety guidelines in place coming out of MIOSHA that are mandated, not subjective to your own company's criteria, but mandated. I put in your mailboxes, if you're on my distribution list, the template that you can use, that you can tailor to your own company's safety guidelines. If you don't have that, after this is over, please reach out to me and I'll get that to you. But it is truly the template for your company. Excuse me, that's approved by OSHA and MIOSHA as well. So without further ado, I've asked Paul Crivac from Three Rivers Corporation to give us an idea about what he's doing to put his people, one, back in the office, and two, back on the work site. There will be some, from what we've gathered, some audits that consumers, end users will be asking for. And so I've asked Paul to come on board and show us some of the things that he's doing to make sure that when Three Rivers hits the job site or when Three Rivers employees come in, they're able to do that. So Paul Crivac, Safety Director, Three Rivers, the show is all yours. I'm going to show your PowerPoint here. So can you see that? Can you see that, Paul?
I can see it, Jimmy. Can you see it?
Very good. So welcome, Paul Crivac. The show is yours, and the brevity of time, again, these are going to be quick coffee bites. So at 8 o'clock, we're going to be signing off. So go.
If not before. Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you that are unfamiliar with who I am, my name is Paul Crivac. As Jimmy stated, I work for Three Rivers Corporation. I'm a proud 36-year employee of Three Rivers. So I have a little bit of an experience. Been in the safety field for a little over 25 years. That's where all my professional training and education has come from. So with that as my background, like Jimmy alluded to, we're just going to delve into some things that we're looking at, trying to look into our crystal ball, et cetera, like all of us are. I'm unaware. I haven't seen all the things Jimmy mentioned that are coming from federal OSHA and Michigan OSHA, part of us getting back to work here in the next few weeks. Looking forward to seeing that and setting plans in place to address those things that are going to be required of all of us to bring our people back and get working again. I do want to preface all this, as you all know, if you've all been paying attention, which I know you have because of your businesses and things like that, all this information that we're talking to here, and I chuckle because I know you all get it. Jimmy and I spoke about it earlier. It is changing so rapidly, literally from hour to hour. So the things that we talk about this morning at 7:30, more than likely will have a different twist to them, some way, shape, or form by noon. Definitely by tomorrow. And then definitely by Friday, because that's when the governor will come out with the plan and we'll get more details and things like that. So with that, I've prepared just a few little a slide deck here that Jimmy has up. We're going to talk about a few things, talking about the return to work goals as we see them, and hopefully that all of you see them the same way. Jimmy did mention the work that ABC uh, has been doing in the background for all this. We've had some really strong allies. You see this slide talks about the Merck Construction Industry Task Force. That's made up of light companies like ours, with some pretty big bats, as Jimmy mentioned, representing us in Lansing. So when we look at return to work goals, first of all, we want to put Michigan on the path to economic recovery. That's good for all of us, right? Our free enterprise system that we all believe in here at ABC. We get back, we get this economy booming again, we get all our businesses up and thriving again. That's really a big focus for all of us. And really, maybe even more for a person like me, when we bring all these folks back, like you see number 2 there, stage recovery to safeguard our employees and our citizens' health. As we bring our folks back, that should be number 1 on the top of your minds. How are we going to do this safely? Regardless of what all the requirements and the things that we're going to have to meet, which we'll find out in the next few days. We need to bring them back, and we need to provide them with a safe work environment, the best that we can. I get that we're all at different levels and we're doing different things, and we have different projects going that have different requirements. It's going to require some effort from all of us for quite a time yet. If we look at the occupational risk pyramid, this did come out from the Merck report, which is available. And I should have said up front too that a lot of this stuff that we're going to talk about, Jimmy, ABC has available, can give you links and things like that. A lot of good information out there. Um, right now, it's probably too much information out there. I mentioned to Jimmy earlier, for myself, and I would suspect all of you are in the same boat. The more I educate myself, the more I read, the more I learn, the more confused I get, because there's a lot of good sources, and sometimes they're saying just a little bit different things, but we can work through that. Use some logic when you're making your decisions. But we look at this occupational risk pyramid for the COVID-19 virus. It's a pretty simple pyramid. You look at the very high exposure, the medical workers, the folks that are in the hospital and working with the people who have been exposed and have the virus, and the healthcare delivery and support workers that are high. Retail workers, I know all of you have been to the grocery stores and probably did some drive-through stuff. Those people are exposed to the greater society as it is. And if you've been out and about, not everybody wears a mask. Not everybody has gloves. Not everybody does that stuff. So those folks that are manning the grocery stores and the restaurants that are open, the drive-throughs and everything like that, the folks at home or Home Depot and Lowe's, they got a pretty considerable risk. And then we look at the lower risk. And Jimmy's going forward on me here a little bit. Lower risk exposure, construction industry. I don't necessarily agree with all this. In our business, we have some activities that are definitely team sports, and that's the challenge for us in our business, in the construction business, is how do we do those things and try to keep that 6-foot social distancing, if possible, and if we can't, how are we rephasing our work? How are we doing things differently to help that out? One good thing is a lot of the outside work, it's always good to have good fresh air movement. Our inside work's a little bit more of a challenge, but that's really what all of you will be challenged with. As I said, all your businesses are different. You have a different focus and you just do different things, and you'll have to go through that and do a risk assessment. There's a lot of good information out there. I would lean towards the CDC's got a lot of good information. ABC's got a phenomenal amount of information on the national level and the local level. I would really encourage you to tap that information. The Michigan Chamber of Commerce has been pretty strong for us here in the state with a lot of good information. And if any of you haven't been taking part in a lot of these, ABC, Michigan Chamber of Commerce, some law firms and stuff been having some phenomenal webinars talking about just the things we're talking about: return to work, the legalities, industrial hygiene and sanitation, and all the things that are going to affect all of us on one way, shape, or form. So I would urge you to get on those mailers and look at that stuff and watch those webinars, usually about an hour, hour and a half in length. And I've been doing multiple ones a day. So we get into the best practices. I'm a guy, I'm going to get on my box a little bit. I don't call too many things best practices. We like to call them better practices, because best practices usually designate that as good as you're going to get. And I don't believe that. So, but for our purpose here, we call them best practices. We look at these strategies as we're bringing folks back as key things as we bring folks back. On your sites, depending on how many sites you have and where you're located, if you're working in the iPark here locally, or if you're working for a large industrial customer, some other part in the state, they may or may not have access protocols here locally in Midland. If we go into the iPark, every employee that passes through the gate gets a temperature check and a few questions asked. So that takes care of a large number of folks. We do the same type thing on our commercial sites. We're asking a few questions to all employees and subcontractors and suppliers that enter. We take a quick temperature check, we're using CDC protocols. If the temperature is 100.4 or over, and that is shot a couple different times with a non-contact thermal thermometer, they're not allowed on the job site. And there's a whole list of things that happen after that. So those are the things you have to look for and think about coming back in. That more than likely will be one of the requirements that the state sets forward for all of us. We talk about job site shutdown protocols, and when we talk about that, if somebody has been exposed to COVID, or a family member has been exposed, or like we've seen recently, if somebody comes up sick during the day. No, we do live in Michigan, or any other place, I guess. This is spring times. There's a lot of allergy stuff going around. Influenza never went away. We still have that, the typical flu and cold and things like that. So there's a whole set of protocols there that you need to be aware of. You get that from the CDC, from ABC, and things like that to help you if you come into those situations. I already talked about the daily self-screening a little bit of how we do that. We urge all of our employees to daily self-screen, take their temperature before they come to work, even though they're getting it taken at work. Because if you have that high temperature and you're feeling sick, we not only want you to stay home, but we're demanding that you stay home. Call in, we'll figure it out, and we'll get through it after you call your health care provider and stuff like that. We can't take too many chances there. Talked about the on-site health screening. That's part of that site access control, self-quarantining and returning to work criteria. We have a whole list of things like that. We have enough of different customers that we run into. We have a myriad, about a half dozen different flow processes for that returning to work and self-quarantining. It's different for just about every customer in the iPark locally. It's different for some of our commercial sites that are essential and are working. So you have to keep on top of that because they all have different criteria for all the things I mentioned. If you get sick at work, or if you've been exposed, and what it's going to take to return to that site or to that customer's work if you've met any of that criteria. So there's a myriad of things. We could probably talk just on this itself for a couple hours. So do some homework and figure that out for your customers and where you're working. Social distancing requirements, and number 3, that's really, really big. the hygiene and social distancing. I know you all have been educating yourself. In our business, it's a challenge sometimes. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is. But so social distancing, that 6 foot or greater. We have customers that if we're working, we cannot work outside of that 6 feet requirements. We have to wear a surgical mask 100% of the time. So that there's challenges there also. So the social distancing, I believe that'll be a big requirement going forward with the requirements from federal OSHA and Michigan OSHA in our state. We'll find out more at the end of the week. Uh, Disinfection and deep cleaning procedures. Wow. I don't know about all of you, but I'm absolutely sick of washing my hands and doing things like that. It really needs to happen. If you've done the research on the COVID virus, it's got a fatty outer layer. I'll give you a little lesson here. And the soap really breaks down that fat, kind of like washing your dishes, so to speak. So that's why we encourage hand washing with soap, warm water, and things like that. And you need to look at when they say disinfection of not only your working surfaces and things like that, but shared tools and equipment and things like that. In our business we use quite a bit actually. So it's more than washing your desktop and washing your countertops at the reception area and stuff like that in the lunchroom and in the break rooms and things like that. Man, you got to really do some deep cleaning and put a procedure in place. We have on our commercial sites and our industrial sites, we have full-time people that are charged with doing that. That's what they do 10 hours a day. They go around clean doorknobs, handrails, empty trash, do things like that. Just clean, clean, clean. And they're doing a phenomenal, phenomenal job. I'm really proud of those folks that have accepted that challenge and are doing that. Hand washing, sanitizing protocols. We kind of went into that. Number 4, kind of the same thing. Wash your hands. If you can't use soap and water, that's get the hand sanitizer if you can find it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I see this as one of the things that is going to carry us into the future. And it's not going to be easy for all of us because we don't necessarily have running water and things like that in all our job sites. But the hygiene and sanitizing protocols, I believe, and we believe, are going to be big things into our future, and probably is going to change all of our past thinking from here on out. So that would be one thing that I would really pay attention to. How are you going to guarantee your employees and your projects, your customers, et cetera, that the sanitization of your site and your employees, washing hands, disposal of trash, et cetera, et cetera. It's got to be visible, and that's one thing that you're going to want to really really look at. Facial coverings, number 6, and PPE requirements. Got to be, I don't want to say we need to be careful here, but a lot of the masks that we're wearing aren't really considered PPE. If we throw stuff into that PPE category, if you guys are wearing an N95 mask by some chance, you got to remember we still have requirements to do fit testing and things like that. All of you who are aware of the safety standards, I know are up to date on that stuff, but the facial coverings like the fabric mask and things like that, that's not really called PPE. We just need to be careful there of how we address that. The facial coverings can go from anything you see in the requirements, anything from a fabric face mask, what most people have, to surgical mask, which is more of a action word than anything. A real surgical mask, they kind of all look the same, but surgical mask, that they wear in the hospitals are all sterilized and stuff like that. You can buy all kinds of surgical masks, they call them, but they're not necessarily sterilized surgical masks, but they do kind of the same thing. And I think the biggest thing that I see here with the facial coverings and the mask, and hopefully you're all aware of this, but really what the mask is doing. Um, a lot of older folks and people who are uneducated in it think that you wear a mask is going to keep you from sucking in COVID-19, and that's far from the truth. The mask is really to save other people from you. You could be asymptomatic, where you could have the virus but don't show any symptoms, but you can still transmit it. So wearing that mask kind of keeps that inside or contained to you. And if you happen to sneeze or cough, that keeps those droplets and all that other stuff contained to you. So that's the big deal with the mask, and why they're required. And I would urge all of you to check with your customers, your different customers, because I'm telling you, the requirements from the different customers are vast. Um, Make sure you understand um, what they're requesting, and we'll see what the state's going to request too. I'm sure this is going to be part of our marching orders come Friday. Preventive material inventory, big one. If you all know, you've all probably been trying to buy masks, Lysol wipes, hand gel, sanitizing gel. Um, I would urge you to when you can buy. Uh, I'm not encouraging you to hoard. Go by the size of your company. We luckily a few weeks back we run into some ladies that were willing to make masks. We had 500 plus masks made for us. And since then, we've ordered 10,000 surgical masks and all this other stuff for work we're doing with some of our industrial customers. Um, but it's not easy, as you all know. If you see Lysol wipes when you're out and about, I would encourage you to buy some, keep them stocked up. Um, that is something part of the deep cleaning procedures and the disinfection and stuff like that. It's all has to do with that preventive material inventory, mask, rubber gloves, cleaning supplies, et cetera, et cetera. So do yourself a favor. Let's not get caught like we did this time, most everyone, and not have any material. Communications and facility signage here at Three Rivers. Most of our buildings are locked down. Our main office building where I'm located. If you have to come here, even our employees, you have to get rung in. We have a security system, and our front desk lady Kim, she operates that. And as employees are called back or vendors come, they ring the button, and what's your business here? And so you got to have that process. And we have signs all over our work sites and our facilities, encouraging folks to wash their hands and wear their mask and things like that. Just promoting all these things that we've been talking about, putting in front of them. And to a certain extent, it is sensory overload. But we find that it's absolutely necessary and it works. And I believe that this will be a part of our marching orders also come Friday. And then employee training. This is what we look at as one of the biggest things as we see people returning to work from layoff or on call or whatever status they were on or furloughed. We've put together a training packet, and each of our folks that that meet that criteria, whether they're coming back from layoff, they're coming back from quarantine or whatever it was may be. There's a series of a slide deck that we take them through. We talk about the COVID response plan. We talk about our actions. We talk about our responsibilities and their responsibilities and all things like that. We have them sign uh, response that they've been through the training, that they understand the training, sign and date that. And that's just to bring them all, for all of us that have been working every day and have been doing this has all be kind of, and I say kind of, become second nature. Wearing the mask, washing the hands, WebEx meetings, Zoom meetings, things like that. So as we bring back our office professional staff and our field crafts people, man, we can't train them enough of the protocols we're currently under. Some of them have been away from the site. I hate to use the term sitting at home because nobody is doing that. They're unaware of a lot of the protocols that we're having to live through daily. So that training thing, we look at that as one of the big things when you're bringing folks back and moving forward. And then in just a real quick summary here, Jimmy, I listened to Jimmy's stuff on YouTube, and I got to applaud him because I like his message that he puts out there. A few weeks back, he made a comment, and I want to quote him. He says, you know, this gives all of us a chance to do better and be better. And I fully believe that. Um, our businesses, our construction business, we've been pretty good, but we can do better. And this gives us a chance to do that. You know, we really need to focus on engagement of all of our folks as they come back, or even the essential people that have been here. We absolutely need involvement from leadership um, to foster that engagement. And those are some big things. And as I've mentioned earlier, we need to really recognize it's not a one size fits all approach. We all have different companies, we have different needs, we have different expectations from our customers and of the things they hire us to do. And so we really need to tailor that to what your company's doing and how you're moving forward, the services you're providing to your customers and things like that. With the ultimate end game is keeping your employees safe, being able to run your business and do it safely, not expose anybody, and move forward till we get through this at a higher level than we are currently. And that kind of falls in with companies need to develop requirements, procedures, and guidelines that fit your company, that are tailored to your company. We talked earlier about adapting to change and new information. This has got to be the biggest piece for me, and I know Jimmy and all of you. If you're not fluid, you really need to educate yourself on how to be fluid, because change is here. We're living change. We're living history. And I'm going to venture to say, and you're probably sick of hearing this, you know, as we get back to normal, well, we're going to have a new normal. Our reality is going to be different. And I would venture to say that each of us are going to run our companies different. We're going to be on our sites differently. Our people, our craftsmen, our workers, our employees are going to be different in the way we do things. And as professional people, we're looking at, you know, we're going to probably do more remote learning. We're going to do absolutely more remote meetings, kind of like we're doing now. I think this is going to be the new fad. With customers and stuff like that. We're going to do a lot of drone stuff so we can do virtual walkthroughs on sites. We don't have to all get together and tromp around in the mud, et cetera, things like that on new sites. Like for us, a lot of that will be sit in your office and we'll do it virtually. So a lot of new good things out there, and you'll have to explore that for your own for your own company. And another thing, you know, empowering and charging individuals, supervisors, and managers with responsibilities to implement best practices. That kind of fits in with that one size doesn't fit all. You know, you have to have faith in your people, your leaders, your supervisors, your field supervisors out in the field. Encourage them and empower them to make those changes that they see that will fit the sites that they're in charge of and things like that. It's really not a time for micromanaging. You know, you have good people, let them do their thing, and we'll get through this safely. So that's really it's a big deal, folks. I know I went through this kind of quick, and what I do want to offer you is that, and I'm not not by any means have all the answers, but if there's some smaller companies out there, even large ones, I am available absolutely 24 hours a day. Jimmy knows this. To talk through things, to help you through things, and any information that we have, the Three Rivers and I have, any forms that we use, any policies that we have, we've always held the belief that nothing that we do safety wise is proprietary. So, you know, you can get a hold of Jimmy, or if you know me, contact me. Jimmy will give you my contact information. Email me, text me, call me, and we'll get through this together. Help all I can. And I appreciate giving me some of your time this morning to let me babble on. Hopefully it made some sense. Kind of went through it quickly. You know, I say people, we can talk for hours about everything. So again, thank you to all of you. Thank you, Jimmy, for having me.
Well, thank you, Paul. We do want to keep these brief because we're not going to solve the world's problems overnight, especially as it relates to.
Nope.
But what we want to do is have a culture, not build a culture, but share a culture. I will share this with you. And I spoke to somebody just this morning, two contractors who couldn't make the call today. They were running out. But here's the thing. You know, when we had a national tragedy on 9/11 in 2001, there were safety protocols we had to take in order to ensure that we were going to be safe. People complained and bitched and moaned and groaned. It's what we do, because what happens when we take us out of our comfort zones. But you know what? Here we are, 19 years later, and guess what? You take your shoes off before you get on the plane. You don't get them. You don't get a separate set of rules. You take your shoes off, and I fear that, I don't fear it. I know that what's going to happen moving forward is there's going to be some element of taking your shoes off as it relates to going into a workplace, or even for you to feel comfortable going into a workplace. We're going to have new protocols, new changes, and you're going to have to adapt, or you're going to be a dinosaur and never fly. And if you're comfortable just traveling across country in your own little vehicle, that's fine. But the world doesn't work that way. So this is what this is about. And Paul said something earlier. You know, we have 90% of our contractors with 50 employees or less. 90%. So they don't have the benefit of a safety director, like Paul is at Three Rivers. But so what? You know, we're a family now, and this is an industry thing, not a Three Rivers thing, or a Fisher thing, or a Wall Gas thing, or anybody else. This is a family thing, an industry thing. And if any one of us falls victim to this COVID
We all
virus,
fall.
we all fall. And whether you know, this, they didn't say some of you get to go back to work, or the labor guys do, or the not. No, they said everybody goes back to work. We better lift each other up and get ourselves through this, and bitch and moan and groan about the other stuff later. But let's get back on the workforce safe. Let's get back on the workplace safe. Next week, I have Greg Sizemore, who sits on the National Construction Safety Council, where all these templates were created. He's going to come out next week and talk about some of the things. And as Paul said, I can imagine from this point now until then, lots of modifications and changes are going to come out of there. Some of the other states are opening up as well. So he'll be on to give us some of those things as well. And lastly, we have next week, next Wednesday, please check your reminders. Paul also alluded to the fact that there might be some workplace legal issues. We'll have our attorneys on next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Valerie has already set those meetings up. If you didn't get it, please let me know. Want to make sure that while Paul is trying to give you tips to get in there safe, we want to make sure that when you get people in there safe, you're protected from some of the legal ramifications too when somebody says, I don't feel safe coming back to work. So all that stuff is real timely for us. It's really great stuff. I can't thank you enough for all you do. We couldn't do this without you guys being ready to get back to work. And that's pretty much it. So I want to sign off by thanking you for everything you do for Merit Shop and Free Enterprise. And this video, by the way, will be in the CEO newsletter. It is recorded. So for those people who weren't able to make it, or you came in a little bit later, watch for the CEO newsletter later today, and this video will be on there. So thank you guys. God bless you. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.